Iron Gwazi is a very much anticipated RMC Hyper Hybrid coaster that I got the chance to ride for pass holder previews. It got delayed a couple years, but it's finally ready to ride. I've been very curious to see how this ranks among other coasters I've ridden, and getting 19 rides on it in almost every row, I think I have a pretty good grip on the ride. So it's time to talk about it in today's review. You can find Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa in Tampa, Florida. It's at the very front of the park. Just walk slightly straight, then the pathway to it will be on the left. Walking up to it gives you a very warm welcome of the ride. It's big, the stylizing from the outside is cool, and it's intimidating. When you get into the station, you'll notice that the ride has 6 cars, all with 2 rows each, which means 12 rows, and a train holds 24 riders in total. This is a ride that you don't have to be too picky about a row. No matter what row you get, you'll get just as good of a ride. I went in expecting this to be one of the best RMCs and one of the best coasters in the world. I expected it to challenge Velocicoaster for the best coaster in Florida, and even though Velocicoaster was better last year, it was still my number one going into Iron Gwazi, and I knew it would be extremely tough for something to beat it. I knew Iron Gwazi was a ride that was capable of doing so. I was sure it would be top 3, I just didn't know where. After my first ride on Iron Gwazi, I did rank it number 3. It was awesome, but not best coaster worthy for me. That was also only after one ride. My second ride was even better, and I didn't even know where I'd rank it. I just figured I'd ride it again. And I was able to marathon this at a 5-minute wait during the first half of the day, since I did go for pass holder previews. But my third ride on it was in row 10. I got the right side for the first time, which I expected to be better than the left side, but oh my goodness, did it shock me. The third ride left me crying on the brake run, crying tears of joy. I was in absolute shock. I put it as my number 1. I rode it 16 more times for a total of 19 rides on it, and I think it's safe to say that Iron Gwazi is my new number 1 roller coaster. I rode it in row 2 later in the day. That may have been my best ride on it. I don't know. Every row on this coaster is just so good. Now I think we should get into the ride's elements. I'll be ranking them in the next video, so these will be very brief thoughts in this video, but let's go over the layout. You start off with the turn to the left out of the station, where you then dip down. In the front, it's just there, but in the back, you do get a nice pop of air to set the tone for the ride. You climb up your 206-foot tall lift hill and drop at the same height of 206 feet. In the front row, it's a lot better than I expected. It feels really steep, and you can get some good airtime on it. In the back, you get some insane whip. Butterflies as well in the back. I don't know if it's my favorite RMC drop. I'd have to rewrite Iron Rattler, but I think it's a little better than Steve's. Also, this one does have a great hand chopper, just like IRAT. Then you'll go into a turn to the left that is really an outer bank. In the front, it's sustained ejector, but in the back, you get a violent whip on the second half of it. You then will turn right into a drawn-out upwards turn that leads into the infamous death roll. Is this my favorite inversion? No. Where does it rank then in terms of inversions? It's definitely up there with some of the best inversions, but I'll still have to give that to the Mosasaurus roll and the pretzel loops, as well as Batwing's vertical loop and some others. It's very whippy in the back row, floaty in the front, and is decently better on the right side. Next comes the cutback, which is an awesome element, pretty shocking actually. It's like a normal cutback, but the exit is at an angle where you get some great airtime. Then you go up into what most people are considering the best part of the ride. I won't reveal what my favorite part of the ride is, by the way. You'll have to wait to see that. But this provides some awesome sustained sideways ejector airtime. It's one of the strongest airtime moments on the whole ride, and it's taken sideways. I will say it's the best wave turn I've experienced, and it beats the outer bank on Steel Vengeance. After this comes a really surprising airtime moment. Definitely a sleeper hit when it comes to elements on the ride. Then is a mini wave turn, which gives nice sideways floater, similar to the wave turns on Steve. Then is the 0G stall, which by itself is average, but the whip you get from the pullout is awesome. Then comes another very good airtime hill that gives you a lateral kink. The first hill of the double down is nothing special, but the second is insane. And the final hill is awesome. It's like a mini Iron Rattler quarry drop, except it ends off an extremely well-paced ride this time. My shirt went flying every time on this element. Before you fly into the brake run, it went down a few times when it was overshooting the brake run, and that's how well paced this ride is. It overshot the brake run a few times, and this coaster does have the best layout of any coaster I've ridden. But let's get into the categories. Each category is worth more based on how important I think each category is for RMCs. Airtime gets a 10 out of 10 easily. This is some of the strongest airtime on any coaster. I'd say the strongest single airtime moment I've experienced is on Twisted Timbers, but on average, Iron Gwazi I think has the strongest airtime, maybe excluding Lightning Rod and Twisted Cyclone. Now, comparing this to Steel Vengeance, Steve definitely has some of the strongest airtime, but Iron Gwazi takes it to a different level. The wave turn, pullouts of all the inversions, the double down, the final hill, there's so many absolutely incredible airtime moments on this ride that contribute to this coaster having my favorite layout. This ride is pretty re-rideable, however, it's not the most re-rideable because this will hurt your thighs after just a few rides. Mine got pretty sore. So for what this ride is, it absolutely deserves a perfect 6 out of 6. It's the most intense RMC I've ridden, and you can see that in my on-ride photo. You should definitely gray out after the first drop, and the airtime moments, because they're so violent, they definitely add to the intensity. This is the most violent RMC I've done, one of the most violent coasters of all time. This deserves a perfect score for sure. Iron Gwazi is absolutely flawless when it comes to pacing. It's like an upscaled RMC Raptor. Before I rode this, Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster made me scream more than any other coaster, but I think I matched that on Iron Gwazi. It's just element after element, non-stop, world-class elements, and it flies through them. It doesn't have a mid-course, and it flies into the brake run, like I said, to the point where it was overshooting the brakes. It had a hard stop to make sure they worked, and something fun about that is in the front of the cars, there's nothing in front of you, so you get flung forward with nothing to push off of to stop you. So every single time I was forward in my seat, it was so weird, but so fun. This ride has the best RMC inversions along with Twisted Cyclone, so this has to be an 8 out of 8. To start the inversions off, you have the death roll, more scientifically known as the barrel roll down drop, just like the ones that start the ride on Twisted Timbers, Storm Chaser, and Medusa Steel Coaster. This one drops you at a faster speed. The inversion gets more whippy as it goes on, and by the end, you should be getting some nice lateral G-forces. This is for sure one of the best inversions I've experienced, but I still wouldn't call it the very best. Maybe top 15, maybe even top 10, probably. The second inversion is the cutback. Some argue it's just an overbank, but it does look mostly inverted. It feels borderline inverted. The park says it's inverted, so I'll just say that it is. The pullout of this element is very whippy. I love that. And the third and final inversion on this ride is the 0G stall, which is a below average stall, but a very nice and whippy exit to the stall. So these inversions really excel on the exits of the elements, and it excels very much so, making me have to give Iron Gwazi a perfect score for inversions. Butterflies are getting way harder for me to rank as time goes on. Considering how strong I get them and how many elements is tough, and I don't really get them as much on most coasters anymore. On Iron Gwazi, I get some on the first drop, but mainly in the back row. It's not some of the best, but it does have them, and so it's getting a 6.5 out of 8. Again, it's really tough to judge, however, it is something I do love in coasters, so I have to make it a category. Iron Gwazi absolutely deserves a 5 out of 5 for near misses. There's a few big ones on this ride. The one after the first drop is good. You get an awesome near miss effect on the death roll, and the lift hill on the wave turn is an outstanding hand chopper. You don't see it until the end, so it can throw you off guard maybe if you're not expecting it. And something worth mentioning is a beam had to be taken off the death roll because somebody actually broke their hand on it. So if that doesn't show you how crazy that is, I don't know what will. This isn't too important of a category, but it is still something to mention. I'll give Iron Gwazi a 2.5 out of 4 for the theming category. I've heard people say it's more stylized than themed. That's kind of true. There's some signs showing crocodile facts in the queue. The station building designed with the straw was used for the original Gwazi, and it was constructed by native African people who constructed that type of stuff for their homes. The colors for this ride are purple and green. It looks really nice together. There's no theming during the ride, but I guess you can count the death roll and a very immersive theming sense. It's trying to mimic an actual crocodile death roll. But yeah, 2.5 is my score for there not being very much theming, but it is stylized very well. For the comfort category, I'll be giving Iron Gwazi a 7 out of 8. This doesn't get a perfect score because the ride almost is kind of uncomfortable in a way. It's glossy smooth, and it's of course an RMC conversion, so yeah, it's glossy smooth. The shin guards don't even hurt me, to be honest. And you can get all the room in the world that you want on this ride, so it allows for a perfectly comfortable ride on paper. However, it does have a lot of whippy moments with some insane negative G-forces and some awkward transitions, and it could put a lot of wear and tear on your thighs. The negative forces are just so intense. The death roll is one example because of you getting slammed into the side of your seat, and the big wave turn is the part where your thighs will get hammered the most. It's just so powerful, sustained, and the entrance and exit of the element is so snappy. It kind of feels unnatural. Not a bad thing, that just makes it feel more crazy and arguably uncomfortable. However, it's pretty re-rideable for me overall, and it gets a pretty high score for comfortability. Final category is duration. I'll give Iron Gwazi an 8 out of 8 for this. Some people would say that's way too high and that it doesn't even compare to a perfect length of Steel Vengeance, but this ride doesn't feel that short at all. It's very satisfying, and being as aggressive as it is, I'm not sure it should be much longer. It packs a good number of elements in, all are fantastic. You feel like you're getting your money's worth, and that's a huge reason it's my number one. It's more aggressive than Steel Vengeance, which is very aggressive itself, but this is more aggressive and still feels like a long ride. So for the final score, Iron Gwazi gets 63 out of 67, which equates to a 9.4 out of 10, or 94% of the points possible. That's one of the highest statistically for me, and for my personal score, it of course receives a 10 out of 10. Absolutely incredible coaster. It's a perfect ride. It proves that you can't label a coaster best in the world until you ride it, and I'm glad it gave me that perspective, really. Iron Gwazi is perfect for Busch Gardens Tampa. It fills in the airtime gap that the park was missing, and it has some of the best airtime moments I've experienced on a coaster. Is it the I-305 of RMCs, as some people are calling it? It's kind of a weird question. I guess it's the most intense RMC I've ridden, but I'm not sure there is an I-305 of RMCs. But that's going to do it for this review. I'll be reviewing each individual element and ranking them in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later.